shoulders look good, mate. A little pump up.
Well, next to mine, not quite so impressive, but you look all right, yeah. Like I said, mate, in my own head, I'm not that bald, but I see it on here, I'm like, it's gone, it's over. Oh, look at that, it's a shiner.
Yeah, it looks good though, mate. You got a good shaped head for bald,
Do you
mate.
reckon?
Yeah. Like my shaped head's fucking terrible, mate. When I start to go bald, it's not going to be a good look.
Nah, but you're a fighter. You just look harder.
I need to get my ears more cauliflowered up, don't I?
Yeah, they're
get them looking a bit fatter.
Mine are pretty cauliflowered now. I don't know why. I haven't really done that much. Boxing, I think, more than anything.
Yeah, no, we'll do it. Well, I'll do it as well.
We're rolling, by the way.
Oh, okay.
We can just go for it.
Okay.
I'm excited to talk to you. Let's pull this to your face.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk to you because one, you've done a lot.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of stuff. So I listened to a podcast that you were on. I can't remember the title, but I found out you were a teacher.
Yeah.
Found out that you'd had a stroke at 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sound like you forgot about that.
Yeah, I had. It's gone there.
You've mentioned door work.
Yeah.
I've been training with you. S&C coach.
Yeah.
BJJ.
Yeah.
Like, you've done a lot.
Yeah.
And then the other reason is you're now a teacher of mine as well.
Yeah.
And I kind of hold teachers in high regard. So I always like to get to know as much as I can. Because I think I'll be on this BJ journey for a while.
For hopefully forever, mate, not a while.
Hopefully, as long as if I stay fit, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
But you mentioned it's kind of one of the obstacles to overcome. So yeah, I'm excited. So should we start with the BJJ?
Yeah, of course, mate. Yeah.
One of the reasons I find it so goddamn hard is because when you walk into an environment where 98% of people in there can kick my ass.
In a sport jiu-jitsu context, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you've got some other combat experience, then it's easy to forget. Like, it gets a whole lot harder when someone's punching you in the face, or you've got to start and get through strikes. So if you've got a bit of a boxing background, then in a real fight, possibly not. But yeah, in a straight up on the floor grappling match, then yeah, probably. Maybe not 98%, but yeah, good in the 90s.
The vast majority, right?
Yeah, yeah. If you turn up to the advanced classes, and that's
yeah.
But that's the exciting thing. That's when you know something's real. When you think
it is exciting, and I think this is where the resilience and almost experience of knowing that to get better at something, you've got to suck.
Yeah,
I can imagine a lot of guys would probably kind of bow out at the point they realise that they've got so much to do. For sure. Especially if you've been quite competitive, or I've always been fit and healthy. I've always been strong. I've always been one of the best at what I did. And then I stepped into the boxing ring and bowed out because that was a painful education. You know, broken ribs, broken nose. Yeah. And BJJ, I got humbled very quickly. I kind of thought, it's not going to be as painful as boxing, but I'll be better than what I was, and I wasn't.
Yeah, we all thought the same.
Yeah.
You're not alone. I think everybody thinks the same thing. The problem you've got with jiu-jitsu is, and any combat sport really, is blokes inherently just overestimate their combat ability. It's one of those things that everybody's, they're like, oh, yeah, and I'll just do that. I mean, the amount of conversations I've heard where people have told me exactly what they do in a fight and exactly how it's going to go down, and it's like the most absurd thing ever. And you just equate it to anything. Like, have you ever played badminton with someone that's half decent, county level badminton player? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I have actually.
Yeah. So you've experienced. So it's ridiculous. You can't. They're just toying with you, and they're shit. They're only at county level playing, and then you see them against a national player, and they get made to look like you looked against them, and then you look at the Olympic level, and the same thing happens again, and you can't comprehend it. And the same on a football pitch. The same, more obvious in one-on-one sports like a tennis court. You go against someone that's half decent at tennis, squash, the same thing. Volleyball, any of these sort of sports, and you just look absurd. But it's like, I'm no good at it. Table tennis, same thing. But for some reason, if it's got a combat element to it, I'm going to do all right. I'll do all right. I'm big and strong, and it's just no different to any other sport. It takes time to learn, and
But it's painful. It's a painful way to learn, right?
It can be. It can be. It can be if you go there. If you're one of those guys that overestimates your ability, then that's when it gets painful because you've got the throttle down on full, so everything's there's loads of tension and built up inertia there. Things are going to start snapping and cracking and popping, but you're doing it against someone that understands how to play the sport. Well,
look, you're in the PT world as well, so like half of our game or half our job is to manage people's expectations. So instantly, whenever I work with a new guy, I can, like you say, that is so clear. Like, this guy overestimates his willpower.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you're in for a bit of a shock, which is fine if you take the lessons and apply and then continue on the journey. Yeah. I think that's where a lot of guys will just bail because they'll be like, I'm so less further down the line than I thought.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially like when it comes to, there's a bit of macho-ness about wrestling and fighting. There just is that you're not going to get away from. But I think one of man's greatest fears is feeling incapable. So with BJJ, you can feel like you're about 5 years old, being toyed with, and you feel powerless. I think that's the word.
Yeah.
When I wrestle against you and Tom, it's like, you could kill me.
Yeah. You
could, and there's nothing I could do about it. It's a strange feeling. Yeah. It's quite nice as well. It's weird. It's
the drowning analogy is probably the best one, isn't it? You know,
it.
It's being in the pool and not being, and no matter how hard you kick, how hard you flower your arms around, you just sink in, and it's just getting worse and worse, and you're getting deeper and deeper, and it's horrible. It's and I had the same thing as well. So because I came from I've done so many martial arts as well. I've got 4 black belts and instructorships in 7 different martial arts. I'd done a lot before I came to jiu-jitsu, and I was doing the JKD at the time, and I was rolling around with a lot of guys in there kicking their ass. So it's not like I'd never grappled before. But my first experience of real jiu-jitsu was against Braulio Estima, who went on to become one of the greatest of all time. Yeah. But he was only a brown belt at the time. Yeah. And a little bit like you, exactly the same line. I thought, probably going to lose, but I'll do all right. And then he's got me up in the air like a small child, literally helicoptering me around in the air, flipping me, dropping me into submissions. And I'm just like, that's what I've been searching for my whole life. You see it in the movies, the little Chinese guy that could just throw you around. Yeah. I never ever found that guy, but ended up being a young, cocky little Brazilian, that, a young, handsome man that had to put me in my place. But just amazing. But you have 2 reactions to that. My reaction was to be inspired and go, shit, that's it. That's what I've been looking for. Other reactions are to just go and make excuses, tell yourself it would be different if you could punch him in the face and just walk away from it. So,
where was that found then? That attitude that you went to be inspired, like, was that something that was given to you and installed in you, or did you have to discover that, like, through your own methods?
I just think I'd been training martial arts for so long, and I was always unimpressed with everything. I wanted to, like, I remember doing Taekwondo, and I wanted the black belts to be able to toy with me. And me to go, wow, that's the journey to there. And then most of them I could beat within the first month, and they wouldn't spar you, or you'd get them going, you can't go hard, or don't do that. And I'm like, but I'm like a yellow belt, and I'm 15, and you're a 3rd degree black belt, and you're 35. You should be able to absolutely kick my ass. And they couldn't.
Who got you into martial arts?
I got myself into martial arts. I don't know. Ralph Macchio from the Karate Kid, Van Damme.
Yeah.
A child of the 80s. Bruce Lee, all of those kind of martial arts films of the 80s. Yeah.
So you were just watching films and then took yourself off down the martial arts club? Yeah. No encouragement from folks, or
almost the opposite, to be honest with you, because I was a bit of a dickhead, and I think they thought it was gonna. Some parents realise that it's gonna help their child and focus the aggression. My parents just thought I'd be going around punching people in the face.
Yeah, so. I think for the majority of kids, it would help channel them.
For sure.
And in the conversation in the podcast that you're on, it was talked about in schools.
Yeah.
And you said it would never happen. And it's a shame.
Oh, no, for sure. I mean, the model they've got in America with the NCAAs and that whole pathway to scholarships and the way they support sport, right, from in every sport as well, not just the combat sports, but, they're light years ahead of us, but it'll never, ever happen in this country. It's just,
Yeah, too protective, right?
It's just... Yeah, just the whole model, everything. I mean, we could speak for 10 hours on what's wrong with the education system in this country, and it's they've got it massively wrong, and it's getting worse. This namby-pamby modelling, that's kind of where I started to kind of bow out of it, and they're going around interviewing teachers, and I'm just like, no, you need to be a man. There's nothing wrong with that. This idea that you shouldn't be strong and powerful, and it's wrong. You should be frightening. You should be absolutely the most dangerous person you can be. That's but then because those people generally, like, I've met some scary people, some frightening people, and they're the nicest guys you'll ever meet.
Yeah,
there's people that have got insecurities that tend to want to puff their chest out and start fights with you and stuff like that.
In a good club, you just won't get away with it anyway.
No, exactly.
You can't bully in those clubs. You just can't.
I mean, there are toxic clubs, and that filters down from the top down. So there's toxic, cliquey clubs, and there are lots of them around, and that's why people walk through the door, and I'm like, please go and try somewhere else. Like I'm not precious about it, and I've got no problem with people training at multiple places. They tend not to, because they tend to have, I'm really confident in the product we offer. But yeah, we're not protective about it at all. Like most, especially the jiu-jitsu thing's really bad. Like, you can't train anywhere else, and I'm like, what? That's ridiculous. you should go and train everywhere else. It's going to make you better, you know. And if you feel like you fit in somewhere better, then that's where you should be training. I used to get really offended about it in my younger years coaching, but I think it's part of the journey, and you know, there are those toxic clubs where you will get bullied, and there is a sense of, you know, beat at the new guy and all that sort of stuff. But we try to breed a really kind of friendly atmosphere.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's really welcoming. Everybody tries to look after everybody. People try to look after the new guys. But if you do come in with an attitude, and like, I mean, I teach at the university, and I say the same thing, because that's just a room full of beginners, and there's always one big uni student that's lifted a bit of weights. And, you know, I give them the same line. I'm like, if you want to go hard, 100% fine, but you're going with me. Because you're not going to hurt one of the, you know, 8-stone girls, smashing them around on the hard mats. It's just not going to happen. But so I've got, you know, and I try to roll with everybody, like every new guy that comes into the gym. I try to be the first guy they roll with, or definitely within the first couple of rolls anyway. Just so we can kind of gauge where they're at, and you know, if you're friendly and you're respectful, then everything's, you know, it's going to be easy.
Were you intimidated when you came to roll against me?
It was a little bit, mate. I had that adrenaline bubbling in me. I was thinking, this is going to be embarrassing.
I think the problem with, like, you can take exceptions. Like, you hear on the news, like, oh, a cage fighter did this, or somebody was violent who was trained in this martial arts, and they take the exception. But what I've found is that it actually treats you the opposite of those things. Like, if you feel confident and you feel dangerous, you're less likely to use it, I believe. But like I say, like, from just a small time that I've been at your club, I've learnt a lot of respect as well. Because like you say, if you take the piss, you will get put in your place. So I kind of like that, because like, you can take the piss, but here's what happens. So like, it teaches you like what you can get away with and what you can't. And I think you need to know that as well. And I think sometimes in life you have to cross a few boundaries, and you get pulled back, don't you? And that's what I love about like a hierarchy. It's a good place to step into. And I don't know what age you can start at your club, but the first class I saw was a kids club. And again, you can see, I can just see ahead for their future. They're going to be awesome athletes, disciplined, good people that know they could fucking kill you, and that's why they won't. You can just see it. See the confidence coming out.
No, absolutely. And we've got kids that, you know, it's. I mean, I never at the very start. It was a bit of a chore to teach the kids. It's by far my favourite class to teach now. You know,
why is that?
Well, I can do exactly what I want. I don't have to worry about injuring them. I don't have to worry about them working them too hard. I don't have to worry about their fragile egos. You know, and they're just so pliable, so moldable. You know, tell a kid to jump headfirst into a wall, they'll do it as hard as they can. You know. I kind of like, it's like that thing in the Matrix where the rules don't apply, and jiu-jitsu is a little bit like that. That's the older you get, the harder it is to get people to start to, you know, treat their arms like feet and things like that. It's like the rules aren't applying. The way that you've lived your life on 2 feet, you've got to start to change that worldview. Whereas kids, it's just so natural for them. They're just, you know, so pliable to do it. You tell them to do something, they're doing it 30 seconds later and sparring and pulling it off.
How important is it to get the mixture of fun and challenge right? Because for the guys, I can understand that. Like, I know people always talk about like it should be fun. Like, sometimes for me, the reward is in the challenge itself. It's not. It doesn't have to be fun. Like, are the kids the same? Do you think? Like, do you try and make it more fun, or is it no? Look, this is BJJ. You're going to learn how to do BJJ, and the reward will be in the challenge itself.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I tend to be a little bit less fun than perhaps I should be. It should absolutely be fun with kids. It should absolutely. They should learn through play. And I try to do that as much as I can, but I take my jiu-jitsu serious, and I want them to train it serious. So I tend to be a little more over to that side of things, training quite seriously, and our kids love it, and they're really competitive. And I try to make it as fun as possible. You know, keep the coaching very small in chunks. You know, try not to give them 15-minute sermons on certain positions and techniques, and try and go too deep into it. But yeah, I mean, it should be fun. It should be fun for everyone. But I find jiu-jitsu fun. So, you know, learning the technical aspects of it is fun for me. So I think it's a little bit, and I think that's, I mean, it's a puzzle, isn't it, jiu-jitsu?
It is.
And that's so for me, if you enjoy problem solving, then that's what jiu-jitsu is. It's a high level problem to solve.
I challenge you to find any young person or any man that wouldn't find reward in coming through the other side either. Like, what man? The
problem is with that is you never come through the other side.
Yes. Do you not even think mentally though you switch on and go, this is how it is?
Yeah, but I don't think there's any coming through the other side. I think it's you're setting yourself up for a lifetime of challenge, which is great.
That's the epiphany. That's what I mean. You go, oh fuck, I'm not going to complete this game.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
This is how it is.
Yeah. And you don't want to complete it.
No.
Because it gets boring, it gets, and you see it a lot with a lot of black belts, especially of my generation, because the game's evolved just ridiculously in the last 10 years. Like, it's like there's been quantum leaps in jiu-jitsu, and I see coaches that got their black belts a similar sort of time to me, and they're still doing the stuff from 15 years ago, which is great, but they've added none of the new stuff in there, and I just think you're missing the fun stuff. Like, the fun is, like the leg lock thing, there was a large portion of time where I was like a white belt of that stuff, but wearing a black belt. And, a couple of guys in the gym that had the benefit of training with some of the best guys in the world with it, and they were coming back and they were getting the better of me with it. Yeah. So I could have made excuses, or I think, shit, I'm going to learn this. I'm going to figure this out. It's another problem to solve.
And what I find with not only kids, but like the guys that I teach, for example, we talk about passion a lot. Yeah. And we always talk about the fact that, like, if you find yourself getting better at something, you're more likely to grow into passion for it as well. So the challenge is always welcomed because you're becoming more skilled. And I think if you can get past that first 6 months where the habit kicks in, so I go BJJ 3 times, and you notice, oh, that guy tapped me out when I first came. This time, I did all right. Yeah. You start to get that. You start to notice your own victories. For me, that's what's addictive. You think,
oh, for sure.
Yeah, I am getting better.
Oh, no, for sure. And there are those benchmarks. The problem with those benchmarks is they're not linear benchmarks. They're not static benchmarks. So you've got a guy that you both start at the same time, but one's having 2 1-to-1s a week and trains 5 times a week, and you're training once a week, and then you start to go like, why are they getting so much better than me? And a lot of the time they might not be telling you how much they're training, or they might be going off somewhere else and training, or people just develop at different speeds. So it's not a great metric to measure your progress necessarily. It can be great, and when it goes in your favour, so that person there, I couldn't tap them, now I can tap them, and I tap them all the time now. That's a great feeling. Yeah. But when you lose them and they're starting to pull away from you, that has the opposite effect. So it's a
good question to ask though. Like, if there is someone who's like getting miles better than you, it's a good question. Like, why are they? Because usually, if you do a bit of digging, it will be like you say, they're giving more time, they're giving more effort, they're eating well,
for sure,
they're training hard, they're doing their mobility. Because that's what it's made me do. It's made me step back and go, right, how do I get better at this game? Yeah. So now, for the first time ever, I'm doing mobility work. Yeah. Because I've just noticed how important it is. Yeah. So I feel quite strong when I'm wrestling or whatever, but that's not helping me. That's, it helps me against maybe someone my equivalent who's not as strong. Yeah. But when I come up against a blue belt, it don't matter. They're going to beat me. And I find myself forced into positions that are so uncomfortable. I'm like, if I was just a little bit more mobile, I might have a chance here.
Yeah, I mean, the problem, the analogy I always give is like, but most blokes hear the wrong message with this. So you tell them, you go, what you've got is a Ferrari engine, but it's in a mini chassis. You've not trained for a while. The horsepower's there, but the frame's not. The tendons and ligaments and structures they're not. And that takes a lot of time to build that up and acclimatise to the kind of platform that is jiu-jitsu. That's going to take a while. And if you go in there and you start redlining it, the horsepower's there, but shit's going to start falling off. Yeah. You're going to start pulling ligaments, tendons, things are going to start hurting, and that's going to make you want to stop jiu-jitsu. And that's where you've got to go, right, I'm going to have to back this away now a little bit,
Yeah, I'm learning. On the other side of that spectrum of like the guy who overestimates his willpower, I think there's a lot of guys that probably underestimate their ability as well. So there's probably guys sitting at home that go, I could never do that. I could never do that. I mean, I'm 4 stone overweight. I'm 42. I've never done combat. So I think on the other end of that, like there's those guys. Why do you think it's a good idea for somebody to start BJJ, regardless of how old they are or their ability or their capability? Like, do you recommend it for anyone that just wants to improve their life?
No, for sure. I mean, anything active is going to be good. So if you've got people that if we stick with that person that's overweight and inactive, doing any type of physical activity is going to be good, depending on what it is. Because sometimes, it's like medicine, isn't it? It's the right medicine at the right time. Overprescribe the wrong one, you're going to get worse. Yeah. So like going out running all the time, that might not be great for them. So you've got that aspect of it anyway. So, but doing any martial art will give them that. But then when it comes to martial arts, whether people like it or not, we know now, we run the experiment back in 92 with the UFC. We understand what martial arts work. To argue about it for me is it's like ludicrous. It's like we've run the experiment, and the experiment continues to be run all the time. You can go in there. You can go in there with Aikido if you want. Nobody does. That should tell you something, so we know what works. So then we go, okay, so you got boxing, Thai, wrestling, Judo, Jiu-Jitsu. Those are the big five. You know, and I grant you there's a couple of other ones, you know, like kickboxing, full contact kickboxing, those, you know, but you can say, well, that's a derivative of Thai, and you can get into it, but we know those five work. Yeah. Those are, but you know, most people will agree that those are the best five. You're 42, good luck doing the other four. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, I love Judo, but unless you start, and this is where we're back to the kids thing with like you have to learn. Like kids can learn and fall, and then as they grow older, they remember how to fall. And so if you start young and you continue to do it, it's the same with wrestling. But you start wrestling or doing judo in your 40s, you're gonna get fucked up. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna be a painful journey. Your fingers are gonna hurt. You're gonna, you know, and or because you have it in your mind, because you're an adult now, and you know when you fall it hurts. Whereas kids, they don't know it hurts, so they relax, and it doesn't hurt. That's why you see babies fall downstairs and they get up and they just carry on toddling off. It's you know. As soon as you tense up, well, that's what's going to happen when you get thrown on a judo mat. You're going to get more injured. You know, boxing's the same. You know, I mean, boxing gyms in general aren't going to show you any interest anyway. You can go in there at 42, but they're going to stick you on the bag and say, go and do that. You're going to go and do a road run, you know, for one day. So you'll be like, well, I could be doing this myself. I don't need to pay someone to take me out on a run. Then you're going to go and hit the heavy bag, and then sometimes every now and then they might take you on the pads. But unless you're going to fight for them, that they're not interested really with the ABAs, and then obviously you're never going to get into a pro gym unless you're a half decent boxer. Yeah. So the boxing's kind of off it. The Thai is pretty good, but you know, if wrestling's the hardest thing I've ever done, Thai's the most brutal in terms of smashing your body. Do you know what I mean? Like you go and do hard Thai. You know, it depends where you train at. Some gyms are actually really good at accommodating older people, but it's brutal on the body, man. Your shins are going to be all bruised up. You're going to be, you know. You want to get kneed in the ribs a few times, and that's not going to feel great. So out of all of those, Jiu-Jitsu's one of the only ones that's really accessible and easy to learn as you get a little bit older. So that'd be my first thing that I'd say in terms of like the older people. I think if you want to learn a functional martial art, it's probably the best one to pick. And it's also much easier on the body. You know, you're based on the ground a lot of time. It's much easier to build up very slowly in Jiu-Jitsu, whereas the other ones, it's going to be very hard to do.
Yeah, well, one of the things that impressed me when I walked in was like the parents, you know, they sit on the side watching the kids. They're so relaxed, and they kind of just let it happen. Yeah. So when I was young, I went boxing once. My mum had a friend who used to box, and he said, "Can I take Alex?" And my mum was like, "Yeah." So I went once, and I kind of enjoyed it, but I hated it because I was so unfit. I was terrible, and I was scared, man, because I was young and I didn't go out of my house much. And I said to my mum, I don't want to go back. And my mum straight away was like, okay, you don't have to ever go again. And I really wish that had been like, well, no, why don't we do it for 6 weeks and just see if you get any better? Yeah. And I think it's so good that the parents are there saying, go on then, like putting it under your faith and just saying, here you go. Yeah. I love that. I think that's missing a lot today, where you can, just hand your kids over in safety and say, this is going to toughen you up. And that's because I love you. I'm gonna put you in that situation. Yeah. I mean, you know, the support network's everything. I've said it time and time again. Like we've got, I think for the first time in probably my 15 years of coaching, I've got one kid that I think possibly could go all the way, become a world champion. I've never ever seen one before. In my younger years, I thought I'd seen loads, and then you realise, actually, all the talented kids, they tend to drop out because as soon as they hit some adversity, they don't want to do it anymore because everything came so easily. So talent's probably the least thing I'm interested in, but the most important thing I'm interested in is the support network. Yeah, that's the secret to success. You can be the most talented person in the world, but if you haven't got parents that are willing to drive you all over the place, and you know, I can't be at every competition, but these parents are amazing. They take their kids to the competitions. We had one this last weekend, the World Championships, you know, and you see all the groups of parents getting together and they take their kids, and you know, we've got one that like printed out a spreadsheet and highlighted all the times. You just like, you know, the parents love it. You know, there's an element that they're living vicariously through their kids, but there's also the element of their supporting and providing them the opportunities they didn't have, and you know, more power to that. You know, it takes a big commitment. It's a selfless commitment. That's like true parenting, isn't it? It is. I was speaking to my friend. We have this conversation a lot actually, because like I say, a lot of the guys that I teach are parents, and my mate James, he took his kid boxing. His kid's probably, I don't know, 6, and he was crying first time, and he was like, oh, "What do I do?" Like, you know, he's saying he doesn't want to go. I know it's going to be good for him, but I don't want to be that dad that forces him to do something. So he just said to him, right, all I want you to do for the next hour is just focus and do your best. Like, just focus and do your best. So this isn't me saying you've got to do it. It's just, if you're going to go there, go and do your best. And he loves it now. He absolutely loves it. But I bet that's a hard thing for a parent to just kind of like cast their kid away and go, oh man, they could get hurt here. They could get beat up. Like, I don't know when the right time when to pull your kid out of something is. Like, if your kid's still saying after 6 weeks of BJJ, I don't want to go.
Yeah. Well, we tell the parents. So we're really, and this is why I think the kids program at ours works so well, because, and it's probably a bad thing, but the business comes secondary, unfortunately, to the atmosphere on the mat. And we believe that's even better for the business in the long run anyway. Yeah. So we've, time and time again, there's parents that train there, they push their kids into it. And I'm like, he doesn't want to be here. And they're being little dickheads on the mat. They're doing everything with all the attitude. And I'm like, they need to go. I don't want them here. I like it when parents are like, if you don't go and tidy your room, you're not going to jiu-jitsu tonight. Yeah. And they get upset. That's what I want. That's the kid I want coming, the kid that's excited about it. So, that you've got two things. If it's the initial nerves and they're scared, because it's scary for adults, and parents need to remember that. It's like, if you're going to walk your kid into a jiu-jitsu gym and tell them, go on, and you do the class afterwards. Yeah. And, lead by example. Like you do the beginner's class afterwards. You're not going to have to spar, but you're going to be nervous. And adults get exactly the same thing. It's like, if I don't know somebody here and there's 30 people, they're all chatting to each other, they all know each other, and I've got to go and, if you're a bit of an introvert and something like that, it's hard. Yeah. And it's always good for adults to do that, because it's all right pushing your kids there and going, go on, it'll make you stronger. But it's like, well, you still need to be working on yourself as well. Yeah. Lead by example. But, it's hard. So there's that initial getting yourself into the gym and kind of like easing them into it. And that's the coach's job. So I'm always like, if a kid comes back and he's crying, I'm like, if it's his first session and he's left bawling his eyes out, then I hate to say it, that's kind of on the coach a little bit. Like if you walk in, like Penny's there straight away, she's kind of, she's like mother hen, do you know what I mean? She's kind of chatting to him and like shows them where it is, and then and the kids are so nice and welcoming as well. It melts my heart when I see some of the kids, and we've got a couple of the really senior kids, and they go over to people and they're like, oh, come over with me, come and sit with me, and they're big kids and they're going and getting the little kids, and I'm like, that's magical. That's what it's all about. So it should be easy to get over those initial nerves. Yeah. But if they don't want to be there, then they don't want to be there. You can't force them to do that.
Did you have any struggles as a teacher then, back in the day when it wasn't in the physical world and you were teaching in schools, of like how to get the best out of it? Because it's quite different, doing the physical teaching, doing the classroom teaching. Like, was that a struggle for you?
Oh, it's completely different. I mean, like I said, the kids on our jiu-jitsu mat, by and large, and again, we try to push out the ones that don't want to be there, by and large, are desperate to be there. They're super excited about being there. And that's really fulfilling, teaching kids, which is school, that don't want to be there, and a lot of them don't, that's hard work. And then dealing with the behaviour is hard work. And, I did struggle with that all the way through my teaching career, to the point where I stopped teaching. It was like...
How long were you teaching for?
14, 15, 13, somewhere, I can't remember, around that.
Oh wow, a long time.
Yeah. Secondary school in the middle of Birmingham, you can imagine what it was like. So, and I mean, I struggle because outside in the world, people don't start flaring their arms and coming up and getting confrontational with me, because I have a way of dealing with that, and you have to learn new ways of dealing with it when it's some little shit getting in your face, kind of mouthing off at you. So it was always difficult for me, and I just, the kids are disrespectful, and more power to any teacher out there. It's really hard. Yeah. Like, people have no idea how hard it is. And just tell her. I'm like, you wouldn't. No, you'd get sacked. You wouldn't, and you'd not only get sacked, you'd be charged. You can't go laying the hands on kids. Do you know what I mean? So now you've got to learn. And, the best way to do it is to develop a rapport with the kids and do all of that sort of stuff. So, and I always did pretty well with that. I was a pretty chilled out teacher, but I still, it's just not for me.
I can imagine the kids could relate to you, like, especially like you're fit, you're healthy, you're into your sport.
You'd think so, and a lot of them did, but you've still got, there's still just other issues there.
I'm sure, man. I'm sure parents have a role to play as well in that, right? Like you can only do so much, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't envy being a teacher now. It's not.
No, I'd say teacher and probably a police officer right now are two of the things I would not want to do.
No, absolutely. You've got exactly the same problem, but you're dealing with big kids, aren't you?
Yeah.
This new culture of filming coppers and telling them what your rights are and things like that.
Crazy.
I'm watching them all, and they're like, people are commenting, going, "Yeah, go on," and I'm looking and going, "No, you're a dickhead, mate." All he asked you was like what you were doing. You can't stop me. You can't pull me over, and I'm like, just be polite to him.
Yeah.
He'll probably let you go on your way, but no, you have to film him and start asking what his like warrant number is and start giving it the big one.
Crazy. Are you, do you know Jocko Willink is?
Yeah.
So he's a big fan of getting the BJJ into the police world, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this has been something that I've been trying to do for.
It's just common sense to me. I don't see what the debate is.
It's unfathomable. It's mind blowing. We even offered free training to the police force. We had an in the local police force in Leamington.
Okay.
And the sergeant that was in charge of it, these new coppers, they haven't got a clue. They're getting injured. They're injuring suspects. Do you know what I mean? They don't know what they're doing. It'll be good for them. I've got a link. These people are going to offer free Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to the coppers. I was going to go in the day. I was going to give my time for free to nothing. Not interested.
Wow.
And it makes me want to pull my eyeballs out. And I worked the door for years, and the number of times you'd be stood out there. I'm just stood with a man. I'm going like, watch this. Like a 60-year-old drunk old bloke. Looks homeless, absolutely pissed, staggering around. You've got 15 coppers trying to get him into the back of a riot van. Some, I don't know, 8-stone woman gobbing off, going, smacking him with a truck. And you're just like, what are your people pulling in the wrong directions? And I'm just looking at it going, it would take me 5 seconds to get him in the back of that van and he wouldn't be hurt. You absolute bunch of plonkers that have, you've got two types of coppers. And unfortunately, there's a disproportionate percentage as well. You've got the proper sound copper that knows what the crack is, and he's the one that comes and learns jiu-jitsu off his own back, because I've got friends that are black belts that are coppers, and they know what the crack is, and they're inside the force trying to get it into the force, and it's still there's this resistance to it, and we can talk about the reasons for that, and then you've got the milk monitor at school, the kid that was bullied, the one that's got an attitude to prove, and you're just like, you got 15 of those idiots pulling a suspect all in the wrong directions, cracking them with truncheons, tasering people, and you're just like, you don't know what you're doing, and it's just unfathomable. That's a huge part of your job, but that comes from the top down. But the problem is there's people already in power. They've got their job teaching the personal protection to the police, but it's all wrong, and it really annoys me because statistics informs every aspect of what the police do. So they'll look at crime rates, they'll look at where, more crimes happen in a certain area, they'll put more officers on that area, Everything's very, very scientific in terms of the way that they'll look at what's happening, and they'll look at where funding's going, and they'll do all this stuff, and they've got a lot of logic behind what they're doing. They're not always right, but their decisions are... And then it comes to this personal protection of officers, and they get like an hour a year, and the stuff they learn is just absurd. Some of the stuff... I can show you some videos of some of the stuff that they pay to learn, and it's just like... We know what works and what doesn't work. And the worst thing now is because we know what works and what doesn't work now, is all the criminals are going and training at MMA gyms. So they're all, there's some shady characters that come into a lot of these gyms, and they're learning how to fight. And then coppers are still learning how to do wrist locks and things like that, and you're just like, this isn't going to work. I can prove to you it's not going to work in 15 seconds.
Well, I think it's just probably words amongst the police officers like BJJ. They probably know what it is, perhaps, but like I say, until you feel it, until you have someone's hands on you,
but they're not interested in that. So when they do their training, they're not allowed to do anything physical because you can't injure a copper in training because heaven forbid that you cause them some pain, and then because then if I went into I don't know, if I went to any force around the country and I had 30 people there and I got the biggest guy and I say, come and put the handcuffs on me. And then I put him on his back and I wind him a little bit. And then he goes off on the sick for 6 months. And, it's just, the problem is in that job, like the same things apply. Like if you got injured during work, then they've got all these issues that they're dealing with. So the training has to be as gentle as possible so that you don't injure coppers. But then you're going to send them out there into the big wide world where they've got to potentially arrest people. It's,
Yeah, it's crazy. Like you've had some big challenges then, right? Between teaching in the education, COVID with the gym, working on a door, making a transition from teacher to full-time teacher, The stroke, like I say, that you had at 30. Like, what would you say has been like the biggest obstacle that you've had to overcome in your life so far, and what lessons did you take from it?
I don't see any of them as like huge obstacles. Like at the time, it was just shit that was happening that you just got through. But I didn't, I had my stroke. Luckily, it affected my visual cortex. So I mean, that was huge in the fact that my plan was to go into MMA when I got my brown belt in Jiu-Jitsu, and that put pay to that straight away because my vision's so bad. I probably wouldn't have been very good anyway. It's probably the greatest thing that ever happened to me, to be honest with you. You never know. Yeah. But so that was a big obstacle. But I was on the mat training 3 weeks after it. I shouldn't have been. I was, but I sat there on the sidelines for. I think the biggest obstacle was losing my driver's license for 2 years because that grounded me almost. It was.
So what happened then? So fit guy has stroke at 30. Like, what was going wrong inside the body?
So 1 in 4 people have something called a PFO. So I had a hole in the heart, which is quite common. It's not that when you're born, you're in utero. That's how you get oxygen, I believe, through your body. And then as you're born, this PFO closes up, and then 1 in 4 people have a slight like flap on it or something like that. But the way and it acts as a filter, so all the debris and damage in your body gets filtered by your heart essentially. But because the way I was smashing my body up, both in the gym doing jiu-jitsu and lifting weights and all that type of stuff, you get debris that goes through, and obviously a little bit of debris went through and went into my brain and caused a stroke.
So what was the damage like? Was it a severe one? Like, were you?
Well, no. I mean, I thought it was quite a minor stroke, but when you look at it on the brain scan, there's a big area in my brain that's got this brain dead. Yeah. But it's just affected because I've got different parts of the brain. Mine affected the visual cortex. So, like, I can't see you at all if I'm looking at there and you're right next to me. So, it's quite severe. It's kind of like the central macula. So there's 4 spots inside the center vision. So, like, I can't see my hand here, for instance, like at all. So yeah, that was quite severe in terms of that. And just woke up one morning and I thought it was a migraine. So I didn't go to the doctors for 2 days. I'd heard people for years telling me about how bad migraines were, and I'm like, shit, yeah, they're quite bad, aren't they? Turns out they're not quite as bad as my stroke.
Wow. So did this rip the dream away? Like, did you have, were you licking your wounds for a long time after that you realised that you couldn't fight? Like, did it hurt you like, mentally?
No. But I think possibly, as much as I hate to admit, there's probably a part of me that possibly was even relieved, perhaps. I'd wanted to be a fighter, but being a fighter's hard, man. It's like, I know fighters, we have people like Jimmy Warhead come down to gym, and like it's a tough life, man. It's it's not easy. So I think it allowed me to focus just on my jiu-jitsu, which was what I really, really enjoyed. So there were positives to it, but no, not really. That's, just crack on, don't you?
Well, you do, yeah.
Yeah, there's just no point in descending into these deep depressions in my mind. It was like, it is what it is. It's, there's nothing I can do about it.
Well, it's refreshing because, a lot of people would be, you hear about people losing their dream all the time, and it's like, then they spend years kind of, wishing that it hadn't happened, or regretting, or kind of wondering what to do with themselves. So at that point, were you teaching at that point?
I was training to be a teacher at that point.
You were training to be a teacher?
I think so. I'm trying to remember. No, I was a teacher. No, I was teaching. Yeah. I was teaching, because,
And then when was the transition into full-time BJJ?
Fairly recently. I mean, I'll probably teaching as many classes I'm teaching now. I think after the summer holidays, we've got daytime classes starting, so that'll be...
Have you?
Yeah, so that'll be...
Put me down. Put me down.
I keep getting hassled, so I'm like, I really should do it.
The problem with that is, though, I've had this before. Like, as long as they turn up, that's okay. It's when people hassle you and then they're never there.
No, well, this is why I haven't done it, and I've got so many people hassling me now that I'm like... And I did it in Birmingham just before we lost the gym there. And we'd got like a good sort of 10, 15 people on the mat. It was a good day class. So I'm like, I've got enough people now begging me to do it that, and if it doesn't work, then we'll just cancel it. We'll run it for like 4 or 5 months, and we'll see what the numbers and the memberships look like.
I thought you'd been doing it for full time for a long time. Because again, you're just one of those guys that just like, you just ooze passion. Like one of the reasons I want to come and keep training with you is because you're so passionate about it. It's like you've just discovered it.
Yeah.
It's like you've just discovered this gold, and like you want to tell everyone about it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's just infectious.
Oh,
and everyone there, when you speak, no one says a fucking word. Everyone listens and they watch.
Yeah.
And I look at that kind of stuff, and you can see you've got that authority and respect of the guys there. And
it's
nice to be in that crew. It's nice to be in that.
I mean, they're just such a great bunch of lads, you know. We've got some really talented guys on the mat. And I think that's the thing that boosts my ego more than anything is I look at it's not just like a group of anybody. I'm like, I've got some absolute killers on that mat that want to learn from me, and that makes me feel great. That is that's the greatest gift they can give me, is the fact they keep turning up. I'm like, these guys are really good, you know. You kind of have those doubts to like, oh, surely they're going to want to go and train with this guy or that guy, you know. And some of them have been and trained at other places, and they come back to me, and you know, they prefer training with me, and I'm like, you know, it's great. It's the greatest feeling ever, you know, because that's what I'm passionate about doing. You know, I love teaching jiu-jitsu, so to think that I'm all right at it is a nice feeling.
Well, you roll with everyone, right? So you're not just shouting from the sidelines either. Yeah. You get involved, and I do like that, I must admit. So like you can see everyone like has a go with you.
Yeah.
And then you know they just realise where they're at.
Yeah.
But it's really good. So I was thinking this morning on my walk, I thought, I wonder how much mental health would be affected if, like, let's just take social media out of the equation for a minute, and too much screen time and all that shit.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you got up at the same time every day, went for a little walk, went and did your job that you found fulfilling 9 to 5, you ate healthy food, and then you did BJJ every night?
Yeah.
Imagine how good you'd fucking feel.
No, it'd be amazing. I mean, that's, you know,
I sat there and I thought, what a day that would be.
Yeah, I mean, it's a simple life. I mean, my life now is unbelievable, you know. And the amount of people you sit with, and it's the same thing. I mean, everybody, I could go around there and I could drop that like, oh, what would you do if you won the lottery? And everybody straight away wants to engage in that conversation. I'm like, I'd do nothing different. I'd have probably a bigger gym. We'd have some showers. Do you know what I mean? It'd be exactly the way it is now, and just things would be bigger and better. You know, memberships might be a little bit cheaper because I wouldn't need to make a living out of it. You know, but it'd just be like, my life's amazing. You know, but that's, you know, but I'm one of the lucky few, and that's the other thing I realised, like how lucky I am to do what I love doing.
Is it look though, because you've been through the I hate teaching.
Yeah.
You must have had some doubt, anxiety about making full-time transition.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And you went martial arts when you were 15, so it's not like you've just jumped into a full-time gig that you know nothing about. Yeah. It's like when you look back, you are now started when you were 15 or younger.
That, I was like 8 years old when I first started doing martial arts. You know, I mean, the foundations have been building for years, and you know, I had people for years going, I'll go full time, and I'm like, you know, but I've got kids, I've got a family, and I've got responsibilities, and you just want to make sure you can provide for your kids and all those sort of things. So, you know, and it wasn't even a great amount of money I was making teaching, but it was guaranteed money every month in the bank. You know, if I like next week, you know, something could happen, like COVID kicks in again or something, all the members stop, and it's like, how do I put food on the table? So, you know, it's scary, but.
Yeah, you wouldn't go back now though. Like, I'm unemployable now. I've been working for myself since I was 21, 20. Yeah, unemployable. Yeah, and there's, like you say, if you know full well that that's what you love to do, if you ask yourself what you do if you win a lottery and you say BJJ, like you have to pursue that. Yeah. Otherwise, for me, that's what misery and depression can be. It's like when you're not listening to that. Isn't it? I think so. Yeah. I think so. I did a stint at AXA Insurance. And from literally within 5 minutes, I knew that I'd end up killing myself if I stayed there for years. Seriously, I'm not even exaggerating. I was going there crying every morning. Yeah. You know, suit, tie, I had to sign out for a piss, sign back in, selling insurance, listening to complaints. I thought, what the fuck is this? Yeah. Horrible. Yeah, when I'm doing BJJ, not that that's a career, but you're in what you call flow. Like, you don't think about anything else other than flowing. Yeah. That's all you think about.
I mean, that's the epitome of, in terms of like sports psychology, they talk about flow state as in like the pinnacle. And yeah, jiu-jitsu, like, you don't know what your stresses are, what your worries are, whether you've, you know, I had a guy that had a tax bill the other day for 30 grand, you know, he was on the edge. But as soon as he's on the mat and he's rolling around, he's not thinking about that. He's not, you know. Probably thinking about it when he goes back home at night time, but you know, for that moment, no matter what it is, it's just the biggest stress relief, you know. But when depression kicks in real hard for people, it's just getting out of bed can be hard for people, of course. You know. So, you know, that's why I try to talk to all the guys and you know, try and be an ear for them if they want to discuss their problems and. You try and get them back down the gym. It's like, come and do some training, you know. I
think there's a skill not to let yourself get away from it as well. I think, you know, when you're in that state where you're like, I've got to get back into it. For me, even though I haven't been to BJJ with this injury for a few weeks, I'm still not checked out because I'm training. I'm doing my mobility. So it doesn't feel like I've got to start again. In fact, I'm excited about coming back. It's like the person who gains 10 stone. It's like, well, you know, when you gained 1 stone, you've got to catch it. You've got to catch it. When you gain 2, come on, like, you've got to open your eyes and see what's happening. By the time you've gained 10, you've just let it get so far out of control.
But it's the fuck it mentality. So, especially with like weight loss clients, it's like, you know, you ate some shit, so what? Move on. Don't keep eating shit. Fuck it, I've eaten chocolate now, I'm going to have 4 pizzas. Like, you don't need to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And don't beat yourself up over the fact you had the chocolate. Just move on, crack on, and it's done.
Yeah, I think if you can get past that. But that, a lot of people do the exclusion stuff, like, rather than the inclusion stuff. So it's, people ban so much that they are setting themselves to fall off.
Oh, for sure. No, for sure.
So, like, there's an art to it. I mean, this is what I teach it. But again, it goes back to what we originally spoke about. Like, you've got to know yourself. Like, if you're 40 years old and you haven't stuck to any diet so far, you're not going to stick to one. Like, move on. Like, a diet is always there to fall off. So you know that going back isn't the key. So it's like you have to look at all the mistakes you've made, don't you, and take them and think, well, what can I do differently this time? It's like saying, instead of going BJJ 5 times, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll just go twice a week for the next year. Instead of killing it, murdering it. It's like you've got to see where you fucked up before.
Yeah, for sure.
And take on. It's like getting caught with an armbar every single roll. It's like at some point you have to look and go, well, what am I doing?
Yeah, for sure.
What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
But again, definitely, I think there's a big argument that, like, BJJ, weightlifting, any physical challenge, I think intellectual people will think that that's a separate game. So I know a lot of people they'll either be into business and into, you know, study and philosophy and all that kind of stuff, or they're physical men. And I'm like, there's so much to be learned from the art of physical training, like so much mentally. I would say I've learned way more through doing physical challenges than I have in books, through courses. It's taught me a lot about myself. It's taught me that I'm not made of glass. It's taught me that I can bite down on the gum shield. It's taught me that I can deal with stress. It's taught me that I'm not as soft as I thought I was. It's taught me that I can toughen myself up. It's taught me that I can deal with difficult times. It shows me that I can pick myself up off the floor when I've been beaten up. I'd go as far as saying it's pretty much changed my life, physical exercise. Just a lesson.
I mean, I think really intelligent people know that. I think, you know, most of the really intelligent people that I look to and admire, very physical people as well, you know, because it's just so obvious. It's just so obvious. I mean, you look at, you know, I mean, I've got a master's in exercise physiology. I kind of like the strength and conditioning side, and I like the academic side of things. And my wife, she's did a sports therapy degree, and I encouraged her to do that. She didn't think she could do it. She did it, aced it, got a first class degree. And she was doing a lot of these studies, looking at a lot of these modules on like the effects of exercise versus medical intervention. So I was reading a lot of the studies on it, and it is fucking ridiculous. It's like, so everybody wants like the doctor to go in and start cutting them open and doing the surgical interventions. But you look at exercise, and they've got data for it. It's not just like 2 people going like, oh no, it'll really change your life. It's like exercise interventions, if it's prescribed correctly and done right, it just has a profound, like the graph looks like this. It's like this is the efficacy of exercise, what it'll help with all of these problems, and then this is what surgery does, this is what medication does, this is what, and and it's just like, that's like 600% more effective than the next best thing. Like, what aren't people seeing? Like, if you're intelligent, go and look at the data. Don't listen to what I'm saying. You know, it's everything. You know, and it just, everybody should be doing it. Like, you lift in your 20s for aesthetics and to look good, but if you're not lifting after the age of 40, then you're a fucking idiot.
Okay, so it's that obvious, right? Like, why then are we still like a nation where more people are overweight than in shape? Like, let's just assume that everyone does know that
because we're a nation of fucking idiots. we have to be, can't we? There's no other. So the next question is, well, then why? And you go, wow, there's government initiatives. You know, should there be a fat person tax? And then all the ethics kicks in, and you go, you can't do that. It's like, well, you fucking can. And there'll be people in shape a lot, you know, if you smoke, then, you know. But
I'm assuming, like, a guy like yourself, like, you don't need any of that stuff. You don't need the government saying, well, we're going to fine you if you're out of shape, because you've got other motives, right? You've got other values. So I'm thinking, the only thing that I can think of is people think, well, what's the point? What's the point? Like, if life is so short and it's going to end, like, what's the point in doing anything? That's the only thing I can think of. Because
it's going to be a lot shorter if you don't, though.
Possibly. But we all know those people who drink and they live to 80, smoke.
Yeah, again, but go and look at the data. It's like,
oh yeah, but it's not scary enough.
You're talking out like, well, when you actually look at the data, it's really fucking scary. It's people burying their head in the sand.
But that's it. I think it's so future based. So like, do you really think you're gonna die?
But And you will do. So your life will definitely be cut short. There's nothing we can do as human beings to extend our life expectancy. There's absolutely nothing you can do. It's that's the golden elixir of everything. If we could figure that out, then people would be living to 200. There's nothing you can do. You're going to die when you're going to die. There's a shitload of things you can do to shorten your life, though, and that is statistically proven. It's an absolute fact. But the scary thing, and this is where I think people need to open their eyes, the scary thing is, no, it won't kill you. No, it won't kill you. You might live to 85, 90. But from 55 to 80, you're going to be fucking miserable because you're not going to be able to get up. Everything's going to hurt every day of your life. You're going to feel like shit every day of your life. You see some of these guys, you can just go on Instagram and see some of these guys at like 80 years old, like cracking out pull-ups and doing sprints and stuff. And then I walk out onto that street and I see someone in their 60s, hunchback, hobbling on. I just think that is a miserable existence. And you got another 20 years of that miserable existence on planet Earth unless you kill yourself.
Well, it's funny you say that. I can't remember where I was reading it. One of the number one reasons of depression is immobility. Yeah. I can't move. Yeah. Or when I do, I'm in pain. Yeah. Which makes sense, right? Like, because that's something that's with you all the time. For sure. So it's not just the length of life, it's the quality, isn't it?
Well, that's if you're going to die when you're 40, you're going to die when you're 40. Yeah. It's like, but if you're going to die when you're 80, but you're going to live like a cripple for 40 years, then is there any point in life?
I just don't think we're very good as humans at looking that far. Even though we know something, I don't think it truly means that we know or understand it. So I think people have a difficulty looking far ahead. So unless they get the cancer diagnosis there and then, because I'm sure you've heard stories, right, of people completely transforming their life. It's like...
Well, I've physically seen it. I mean, that's the benefit of doing what I do. I get to meet so many different people, and you see these people that have, just the other day, actually, literally on Saturday, I was talking to one of our brown belts that comes down, like, he had testicular cancer when he was, like, my age. And I look at him now, and he's a physical specimen, he's about to get his black belt. He's, like, an absolute beast of a human being, But I think he always was on the pathway to be healthy anyway. But it's just like, and there's parents of the kids and stuff like that have been suffering with cancer since their 20s and things like that have, managed to turn it around. But how old are you now?
23.
23 plus.
Well, I'm actually 38 this year.
38. So you're nearly 40. I'm 41.
Oh, no, hold on. 38.
You're nearly 40, mate. Nearly 40. Do you know, and you got your ass kicked by a 40-year-old as well. That needs to
Who's that?
I don't know, some hench-looking guy.
Mate, I could have hurt you anytime I wanted. I was just taking it easy, You told me to take it easy.
I did feel it.
You told me not to use my strength too much, so I thought,
no, people were looking, mate. You didn't want to embarrass me.
No,
I appreciate it. But it's like that 40 years passed like that for me. So people they're not very good at looking into the future, and I'm like, fuck, man, the last 10 years flew by. And I know the next 10 are going to go just as quick. And, and I had to spend 40 minutes on the roller today and doing fascia release and doing mobility work. I have to, it's a daily battle at the moment. Like Saturday I couldn't teach because I couldn't move, but today I feel great because I know what to do to get my body moving again.
Well, that's good to know because I assumed that you wouldn't be going through any of that.
Oh, mate, it's torture. It's like Saturday I couldn't teach. I was having to get other people to demo the techniques.
I know that genuinely, without taking the piss, that is good to know. Because like you say, you look round at everyone and you think they've got no niggles, no injuries.
I think that's the thing that everybody does wrong.
Yeah.
So they just think, but that's the human condition. Yeah. Oh, woe me. It's only me that's got
this
to deal with.
And you physically look strong. Yeah. So you don't relate that to soreness or injury.
Yeah.
So that's quite.
I've got a glass back, man, and jiu-jitsu is absolutely the worst. Like lower back disorders and jiu-jitsu, that's one of the big things we're always fighting with.
Mine's just starting to ease up after.
Is it your back that was the problem?
Back, neck, groin.
Yeah, there you go.
But the groin has been from weightlifting. Yeah. So like I say, none of BJJ hasn't created any of these injuries. It's just exacerbated them all. Yeah. But again, the positive is I'm starting stretching and doing mobility. Nothing else got me doing mobility because I could still get away with benching. Yeah, but I'm exactly the same. Yeah. I'll program these workouts and I'll have mobility exercises and all these kind of rehab exercises permeated within it, and then I'll start to go, I'm all right, I'm out of pain. I don't need those in there anymore. Yeah. And I can work on making my body look pretty again, and then I get in pain again. It's like, I've got a rule now. It's part of the plan. So it's no longer weights and a mobility. It's the session involves mobility, weights, and that's it now. That's the future for me because I care about my BJJ and I want to be able to do it. And I think it hurt thinking that I might not be able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you can get really sophisticated with the way you program your lifting sessions, and it's not even like that they should like, oh, this is mobility and now I'm doing bench and deadlift. It's like there's exercises that you can have progressive improvement upon, and exercises in there for muscle groups that you don't even think are important that probably are really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some smart people out there now that will know how to mix all of that together. So like I do a lot of learning and research on this. Like instead of resting for 2 minutes in between your sets,
for sure, now
you can do something useful.
For sure.
Do you know what I mean? So you can condense it all in.
Yeah.
But I think you need a reason to do these things, like you say, whether it's health, sport. I think that's the best thing about starting a sport or having a goal. Like it gives you a reason to do the work.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, no, I mean, I probably wouldn't be doing it if I wasn't in so much pain all the time.
No, I'm sure you wouldn't.
But yeah, I think Mike Boyle, who's like one of my heroes in strength and conditioning, like
he's great.
Mike Boyle dropped the line like, I regret doing all that mobility and fascial release work, said no man over the age of 40. It's like, it's the truest thing ever, because the number of people that I see almost on a daily basis going, I shouldn't have done so much deadlifting, I regret all that. I've never seen a healthy looking powerlifter that's a real high level competitive powerlifter that I see walking into the gym going, well, you look like you're moving, mother, like this.
But that's a good example of what we were speaking about earlier. So if me and you know that, we will probably still do it though. Like if you'd have said to us when we were 30, look, you need to stop deadlifting, squatting, benching, I'd have been like,
yeah, well, you don't. I think that's the trick. You don't need to stop squatting, deadlifting, and benching. You just need variety on those movements. And the question is to get to them as well. Why are you squatting, deadlifting, and benching? Why are you back squatting? Yeah. For what? What's your reason? Because if you're a powerlifter, then I've got nothing to say to you. You're gonna have to keep squatting. Well, you're gonna have to back squat because that's your sport. But if it's for quad development, there's 101 ways that I can alleviate all that pressure off your spine and still develop your quads, if not better.
Oh yeah, I totally get that.
It's like variety, and you can still squat, but there's lots of variations on squatting. I don't have to put a bar on your back and
I get it
all through your spine and stuff like that.
I get it. But if I know mobility is good for me. I know that I should have been doing it years ago, but I still didn't. And like you say, it's the pain of BJJ that triggers me. Yeah. Pain is a brilliant motivator. Yeah. It will kick you up the arse and say, no longer do you have to debate this, you have to go and do it now.
Yeah, but that's where having a coach is great. Because if you've got a good S&C coach, then you don't get a choice in it. You put their faith in, and if that S&C coach gets them, like, so if most men, if they're absolutely honest, they want the physique. So like, if you give them the physique, and I even lie to people, so I get them doing some of the PNF diagonal patterns and things like that, and they're like, oh man, that tricep work killed my tricep. And I'm like, yeah, sound, tricep work. It's got nothing to do with the tricep. That's not what I'm doing it for. You're doing it for things like rotary stability and stuff like that. But they can believe what they want to believe as long as you do the exercises. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I'll tell them it's to work on a special muscle in their leg for some. I'll lie. Yeah. You lie to your clients. Get them. Find a way to get them doing what you need to do. If you need to convince someone to do it off their own back, then this is a tale of humanity for thousands of years. Dad said, I wish I'd known that when I was younger, and you just don't listen. You have to find your own path. No, I don't think that's the art of being a good salesman. You've got to sell it to people. You've got to get buy-in. You've got to get people to listen to what you're saying. And I see some of the younger athletes doing the stuff, and I'm like, I didn't do that when I was their age. Like, I've got through to them. I sold it to them. I must have framed the point in a certain way that I got it across.
Well, you started them off on that path, though, right?
It's difficult because how much great advice did you get when you were a younger man?
No, but I mean, if I'm with you 3 times a week and I only know that way of doing it. So if I started with you at 8 years old at BJJ, I would know nothing else. Whereas I created so many of my own bad habits because I started the gym. I don't know, I might have bought a Men's Health magazine.
Yeah,
and then,
I mean, that's,
exactly.
You're always fighting against the bro science. I mean, it's even worse now with the internet because whatever viewpoint you have on anything, you'll go and find 1,001 articles to back your viewpoint, no matter how obscure it is. If I want to believe the world's flat, I'll pull up 50 articles on Google right now and go, and look at this, and look at this, and look at this. I mean, none of it's peer-reviewed, none of it's validated, none of it's sourced from, but you can find whatever you want to, hear what you want now, and that's a bad thing as well. That's the
terrible. It's
misinformation out there.
Yes, which, like you say, like when you come to a club or a BJ, like you have faith that you're being shown the right way to do it. Like trying to learn something on your own is one of the worst strategies ever. Unless it's from, like you say, a reputable source, but even then, it's more fun.
It's just hard, isn't it?
It's harder. It's like me trying to learn BJJ on a dummy, right? It's just, no, I need someone to show me, someone who knows what the fuck they're doing. Otherwise, yeah, where do I get my information
from?
I
mean, you will get there, but anything you ever do on your own, you try and learn a musical instrument on your own, you can get phenomenal. It's going to take a lot longer.
Yes.
If you've got a great teacher, they'll condense it down, they'll put it across in a way that's easy to understand.
Absolutely. No,
and I think to access.
Yeah, and they will iron out bad habits, because if you're
straight away,
it's easier for me, Kev, to teach someone who's never lifted weights than it is to lift for someone who's lifted weights 10 years with the wrong form.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's studies on it, isn't there? I can't remember what it is. I mean, it's the 10,000 repetition rule.
Yeah.
So
10,000 shit reps.
Exactly. Yeah, 10,000, and then they've worked out how long it takes to unlearn bad habits.
Yeah.
And there's data on the stuff. We know it takes a lot longer than it actually takes to learn it, to unlearn something that's already ingrained as a motor pattern.
And some men have resistance to unlearn things as well.
Yeah.
Even though they know it hasn't got them what they want.
Yeah.
So I remember giving so much advice out to people that come up to me in the gym, and I give them the advice, and then I'd see them doing exactly what they were doing before.
Yeah. No, people don't. Yeah, I mean, I try not to get into it. People ask me about stuff, and then they want to start telling me what they're doing.
Yeah.
And all they're really looking for is validation.
Yeah.
Again, to quote Mike Boyle again, he goes, people will literally come to my gym to see what I'm doing, and then end up saying, yeah, but what about this? But what about this? And it's like, I've just showed you what I do. I do it this way for a reason. If you want to go back and carry on doing what you're doing, that's fine. But you ask me what I do. I don't need you to tell me what you're doing. I didn't ask type thing. It's like people just want validation, to be honest with you. And if they don't get it from you, they'll go and find somebody else, or they'll find another source to get validation for what they want.
When I joined I've joined a public gym probably 6 months ago, because I've always had my own gym and stuff. I found it so hard to just concentrate on my own thing, because I like to help people. One, if I see someone who's gonna hurt themselves, but two, there's a lot of young lads in there, and I think part of me thinks, Alex, just go and show them how to do that properly. It'll probably help them. One of the hardest things was to let that go, and just because there's so much bad stuff.
I can't train in those places.
It's hard. I'm all right now. It took me a while.
I don't like it, because we've got another PT down at the gym as well, Alex, and he's an absolute unit of a bloke, and he says he can't train at his own studio because he's there so much, and I'm like, okay, fair enough. Like, I have to train at my own place because I like my shit when I want it, I want it in my circuit. Like, if I'm waiting for something that's part of like a superset or something, like you fucking my routine up. Like, I don't like any sitting down and waiting for stuff or doing straight sets and things like that. But I can't go to public gyms. We went on our honeymoon to the Caribbean. There was a gym on the boat, and like, just going around and just seeing people just doing stupid shit, and I'm just like, it's just distracting me from what I want to do. But you just got to let it go, haven't you?
Well, you have to. But there's two things I really miss about my own gym, and that's one, I can't superset much, because, like you say, you can't claim loads of equipment to the music. Yeah. Music's fucking horrendous. I love angry music, like proper angry teenage music.
Maybe you should stop listening to that, mate. Man, that's why you're an angry man. Too much angry music. We've got a girl down there called Moti, and we let her choose the music the other day, and oh mate, it was horrendous. I'll find it for you at the end. It was some aggressive, angry music, mate.
No, mate, there'll be some angry guys go to get. Like, it's one of the reasons I go. There's anger in me, and I'm like, here's a healthy way I can get rid of it.
You need to listen to some 60s soul or something.
I like a bit of that. I like a bit of that. But that's a loving mood. For BJJ, and training, yeah. I'll take that anger that I've got, because it is I think it's in every man. Like you said, you want to be a bit dangerous, and I think you can use a bit of anger to fuel that. I'll put on my angry music, and I'm like, right, rather than take shit out on the people that I love, I'm going to take it out in the gym.
Yeah.
Or BJJ. Or something like that. It helps, all right? Because there's some angry guys out there that don't have an outlet.
Yeah.
So it spills into their relationship.
Oh, no, for sure, yeah.
Spills into their family, their kids, their wife. So yeah, I'm all down for everyone trying BJJ or some form of physical exercise. Like I say, the answers are there. It just depends who's going to do it, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
What's next for Kevin Webb?
We're just going to keep building the club. I'd like to still compete a little bit. I think people keep asking. I kind of getting the bug again to kind of get and compete. So if I can find a show that'll have me on there, I'm a bit old and a bit kind of my name's not really out there that much, but I still think there's a lot of the guys out there that I think I could do quite well. And because I'm training full time now, I'm in the best shape I've ever been in. So I think I could do myself justice. So I'd like to compete a little bit, keep building the club, keep doing that type of thing. My life's amazing. So I'd like there to still be a few challenges out there. That's why I'm thinking about competing again. But past that, if I do this for the next 20 years, I'll be a happy man. Do it for the next 40 years, I'll be a really happy man. So
what's your weight category?
What's my weight now, or what would my weight category be?
Well, no. What's your weight now, and what would you fight in?
So I'm about 92 at the moment. This morning when I weighed myself, I'd probably get into under 88, something like that. I don't want to weight cut too much, you know.
No. You're a unit. What's your body fat sitting at now?
I haven't measured it for ages, mate.
Wow.
You know, I'll do it with clients, put the calipers on, but you know, it's higher than I'd like it to be. Do you know what I mean? But one of my black belts, Tom Corhay, is looking absolutely shredded at the moment, and it makes me want to kind of sort my diet out. My training's pretty good, but my diet's atrocious. So, you know, I think if I clean my...
Is your diet not good? No.
My diet's not great, but I train really hard to allow it not to be great. But my diet's not amazing. It's not terrible. It's like a normal diet, but I'll eat what I want to eat, and if I want some sweets, I'll have some sweets and that type
Fair
of
enough,
thing.
you can get away with it. Yeah. I love sitting at about 88, 90 kilos in a t-shirt, but then when I take my t-shirt off, I'm not happy. So I've got two different weights. I've got 84 and 88.
Yeah.
T-shirt or topless, completely different look.
Yeah.
It's amazing what 4 or 5 kilos can do on a 90 kilo man.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're already like me, you're already in great shape. If you lost 4 kilos, you'd probably
be shredded.
Yeah, like I say, I don't know what advantage that would be. Well, I guess
it's huge. It would be in combat sports. You know, I mean,
is that the top end then?
What do you mean the top end?
Would you be one of the heaviest in that weight category?
Yeah. But I mean, you always want to be the heaviest of your weight category. I mean, that's the, you know, I toyed with doing weight cutting for my master's degree. So I read a lot of the research for it, and then moved away from it just because I didn't want to be going around collecting piss samples at MMA shows on people and things like that to see what their hydration levels were. But I read a lot of the stuff, and I wrote the lit review for it. I went quite heavy down that road, so I know quite a lot about the research of it. And I mean, it's shocking. It's so unhealthy, yet the benefits are undeniable. So then you've got a problem as a coach, in that like you've got the healthy option, but there's clearly performance advantages to coming in, you know, weighing in massively underweight, then coming in the next day overweight and being the heaviest in your weight category. Less of an advantage in something like jiu-jitsu where it's same day weigh-in. You know, if you've got like that 24-hour recovery period where you can bloat back up again, then huge advantages to it. Yeah. Especially in the early rounds, I think a lot of it starts to manifest. Like, you know, if you're doing a championship 5-minute rounds or a box, boxers tend to cut less, but they're fighting for a lot longer. I think 20 minutes you'll have a huge advantage with that. I think it starts to manifest itself more in the later rounds with those huge weight cuts. But huge advantage to weight cutting.
So obviously, being on the Better Man podcast, this is a good question for us to end on. What do you have to work on to become a better man?
That's a deep question, isn't it?
Yeah, we like deep questions on this podcast.
Should have prepped for me before I came here, mate.
No, I'd like to put people on the spot here on this one. If it helps, I've got fucking loads of things that I could throw in here. Jesus.
I mean, just to keep doing what I'm already doing, I think, to be honest with you, keep researching, keep trying to listen to people that, you know, I constantly, but I try and do this anyway, but I'm constantly looking at things I need to improve on, like personal things, whether it be like things to do with my attitude, whether it's kind of, you know, procrastinating over things, whether it's, you know, even things like with my training and things like that. So, you know, I suppose you could break them down into categories, couldn't you? You could look at like, wow, as in general life, you know, as a family man, what am I doing to improve? What am I doing to spend more time with my kids? Am I doing enough on that side of things? Then my physical training, I'm constantly kind of assessing what I'm doing, changing my programs, tweaking things. My jiu-jitsu, I'm constantly researching and evolving. You know, my jiu-jitsu looks nothing like it looked 5 years ago, for instance. So I think with everything I do, I'm constantly trying to evaluate and having good metrics to measure that, because that's, I think, the problem with a lot of things with improvement, whether it be an improvement in your life, is like, well, how are you measuring what you're doing? What's your metric for improvement? And then once you've got a decent measure of that, then it's fairly easy to kind of improve your life. But certain things like, you know, how do you become a better family man? What's the metric for measuring that? What's the metric for measuring happiness and things like that? You know, because I'm really happy, man. My life's great. So I want to keep moving forward with what I'm doing, to be honest with you. Keep healthy and, you know, make sure I don't deteriorate so I can't do what I'm going to do.
That's interesting.
Question or not?
Yeah, and there's clearly a strong link between your ability to keep growing and your happiness, right? Because you've got that attitude, I think, of like you always want to get better at stuff. I think that's where the happiness comes from. I don't think you'd experience happiness if you weren't growing. That's what I've experienced in my life anyway. If I'm growing and I'm learning, I'm getting better, and I'm being challenged, therefore I'm happier. What would be the metric outside? Like, forget gym for a minute because you're a pro at that. Forget BJJ, you're a pro at that. Like, if we were looking at like family life, dad, husband, like, although we might not metric it, like, what would be your definition of like maybe a better dad or a better husband? Like, how do we look at that?
Well, I think you do need a measure of it. That's the problem, but it's hard to find that measure of it. But the happiness of your kids, speaking to your kids, making sure you're asking them. I mean, I speak to my kids all the time, and I'm like, what do you want to do? What can we do better? What's what's making you feel this way? Like those sort of things. Just making time. I think that's the thing that and time's an easy thing to measure. I'm divorced from my ex-wife, who I've got the kids with, so I don't see enough of my kids as it is. And then when I do have them, I find that I'm too busy. Like I'll be watching jiu-jitsu fights or something like that, and I sometimes have to pull myself out of that and make sure I'm spending time with them. And it's not just time; it's quality time. So it's forcing yourself to do the things that you might not want to do. I don't want to go and play princesses with my daughters, but if that's what they need, you've got to go and do it, type thing. So again, it's a really difficult question. But I think just constantly sitting down and evaluating, what could you do better? Are your kids happy? Are you doing enough for them? I don't know. It's a difficult one.
It is. I love what you've just said though about asking them questions, like sitting them down and saying, actually, because sometimes like we don't know what people around us want, or need. So I think that question of just saying to your kids or your partner, whoever it is, like, what can I do to be a better dad? What can I do to be a better husband? Because sometimes we need that instruction and direction, right?
And it's hard to do that thing. I mean, I'm big on apologising to my kids. I do it all the time, and I don't think people do that enough, and I think if my kids see that I'm happy to admit when I'm in the wrong, then they'll be able to kind of self-evaluate a little bit more rather than just get into arguments. I can lose my rag with my kids a bit too quick and things like that, and I see them really upset, and I have to go in there and apologise and look, I was wrong then. It's hard to do that. I mean, I do it I've done it quite a bit, so they're kind of used to hearing me apologise for things like that. But I think it's difficult for people to, especially with their kids, to admit they were wrong sometimes, and I think that's a healthy thing for kids to see and witness. So I try and do that, and like you say, like just speaking to them, asking them questions.
Yeah, I think it is very healthy for that. It's healthy for them to see you make mistakes as well. But the correcting is the important part, isn't it? And my mentor, Jeff, always says, as long as maybe those kind of like mistakes that you're making, them, there's more gap in between them, like that, then that's cool. Like, you're human, you're going to make mistakes. But I think being aware of it, because sometimes men can be stubborn as fuck. And they won't apologise, and they'll dig deeper. That's kind of like, the path I went down for a long time. But I think like, if we relate it to the physical world, like, you want to set an example by doing, don't you? You don't want to tell your kids to eat well if you're eating shit. You don't want to tell your kids to train if you're sitting on the couch. So I think of it like that as anything. Like, if you want your kids to be able to apologise. But I'm careful what I say here because I'm not a parent. Yeah.
And that's, the guy I've got the gym with, Tom Grandjean, he's just had a daughter, but I used to laugh with another guy at the gym because he's like, well, kids are easy. Just do this, just do that. And he's in the midst of massive sleep deprivation, and me and Paul just love going, kids are easy, mate, surely. And he turns around and goes, they're easy. He can't admit that it's like
I'm not that ignorant. I mean, I had a heavy weekend out on partying and didn't get much sleep. And the difference in me when I've slept versus not is...
that sleep deprivation thing, man. People don't understand quite what it's like when you've got a kid that's... And it's not just sleep deprivation for a couple of days. You're talking like 2 years for some parents. It's like, it's rough, and that's just the kids.
I can imagine. The kids, obviously, they won't give a fuck, right? They don't care whether you've slept or not. They're 2 or they're 3. They need what they need. So it's like having a dog. Like, your dog doesn't give a fuck if you're depressed. It just wants to walk. Like, it's the same as having kids. But Kevin, I've loved speaking to you, man. I could speak to you for hours, and we could talk about all sorts. But one thing, it's so fucking hot in here.
Mate, it's roasting. I'm glad you're sweating a little bit as well. My fear
I can see it.
Sat here dripping.
No, it is absolutely roasting here. I could put the fan on, but then you can hear the fan all through the episode. So, mate, what a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to doing more. I'm looking forward to learning off you.
Cool.
That's for sure. So
awesome having you on the mats, mate. When you coming back then?
I'm doing the Yorkshire Free Peaks this week. Yeah. So touch wood. if everything's all good, I'll be back next week. But I'm going to I'm going to jump in at the beginner's course again.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I got into this stupid attitude of like, if I can't roll, I'm not going. And I thought, no, just turn up.
Yeah.
Just show your face, turn up, and even if it's the beginner's course again, I'm going to learn, aren't I?
Yeah, but the beginner's class is slightly different to the beginner's course. The beginner's course was just like
oh, okay, right,
got beginner's classes have got like, you know, it's almost like the intermediate level starts to come in, different techniques and things like that.
Oh, that's fine then. I was thinking it was like the beginner's course.
No, a lot of people like those classes because like the month class, the advanced classes just focus on one area. And as a beginner, that's not what you want. You don't need a deep study of control. You just want a little bit from here and a little bit from there, and then you kind of piece it together slowly. Yeah,
I'll give you a few weeks off. I won't roll with you again for a few weeks.
Yeah, you want to roll with me, Matt, but I'll just take it easy on you this time.
No, because now I know. Yeah, now I know you'll give it me a little bit. But now I'll be back, mate. Mate, that was great.
Awesome.
Loved it.
No, thank you very much. Cheers, Alex.